everyone, it's Susie, and I am getting ready to bind my signatures into this hardcover journal. I promised that the next time that I made one of these that I would show you all how I do it. And anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I have two signatures, and this is a very small spine. It is just a 1-inch spine. So I am going to be not having a very big gap in my in between my pages. I mean, in between my signatures. So the first thing I do is I cut a piece of this is like a manila folder. It's that thickness, heavy cardstock, and I make it the same length as my pages, which I believe this is 7. I believe I did 7, yeah, 7 on this one. So I make it the same length as my pages, and then I cut it to the width of the spine. And I kind of set it in there so that I can see that it fits perfectly when I put it in. So it is going, this is how my pages are going to set. You see the little gap, or the, you know, the distance I have between here and here. That's kind of the way I want that. I don't want my book to be from edge to edge. That way nothing is falling out of the book. You can't really see the pages when I close the book. So anyway, I made my template, and then I will be using craft text, and I have cut this at 3 inches. I have cut the width of my spine, which was 1 inch, and no matter what size my spine is, whether it had been 2 inches or 1.5 inches, I always add an extra inch on each end. So I add an extra 2 inches. That way this inch can be nice and secure to the cover of the book. So it's going to be covered anyway with some paper, but that is basically what I do. This is craft text, but you could use canvas, any kind of fabric, just something that is going to hold and not rip apart. This is craft text. I know it's got a glare on it, but this is craft text. I purchased this, I don't know, quite some time ago, maybe 1.5 years ago, somewhere around there, from Amazon. So this was the sample pack. It came with natural, white, black, stone, and chocolate, and the only 2 colors I have left now are the chocolate and the natural color. So I'm using chocolate in this one. It's going to kind of be covered up mostly anyway, so I wasn't too worried about the color. And I used my cheesecloth to, of course, fill in the spine, and the only thing I do is I just cut some. I get a kind of feel of how wide it is there, and I just eyeball it and cut it, and I just kind of glued it in there. That's all I did. And so this is kind of how I'm going to put this together. I have scored my craft text, and I've kind of got it nice and creased. Okay. And then the next thing I'll do is take my template, and I have marked top. You want to be sure and do that so you know where your top is and where your bottom is, because your holes are probably not going to be identical, you know, exactly in the same spot. If you turned it this way, you could, you know, accidentally get your holes off to your signature. So be sure and mark your top. I have also put a T on my, I know you can't probably see that, but I did it in pencil, so I know that it is the top. I just have laid this in here, and then I have actually marked with a pencil inside those holes, so they are actually already marked on here for me. And then, of course, I've already punched the holes here in the template there. And then I'm just going to go in here, and I'm going to pierce those holes where my pencil mark is. So that's what I'm doing. This craft text is a very odd feeling, I don't know what you call it, cardstock or whatever. It's not, it's supposed to last. It's, you know, it's not supposed to tear out on you. But it's a funny feeling little paper. It's supposed to be like a paper fabric. So anyway, here is this. So then what I will do, because I know that this is going to be my first signature, this is going to be the second signature. What I do, and everybody does it differently, but this is just kind of what I do. I take my template here, and let me get my pencil. Let's see if I can find my pencil here. Okay, so I take my pencil, and I like to just put a little pencil mark on my crease here, on my fold. That way I can see it. I can't see that fold very good when I just try to lay this on here and, you know, mark my hole. So what I have done is I have took and I have marked where my center holes are right here. You can kind of see a mark here and a mark here. That is really what I've done, so that I can lay this on here and I can see I'm lined up with that right there. And this is the same way. I can kind of see, when I kind of peel this up, I can see right here is my mark. And then I just make a little mark, make a little mark, and make a little mark. Now, once I've made that, and I make it really light, I just take this and I'll just put it across that seam. I just go across that seam right where my little dot is. I go across that seam. And then that is where I'm going to punch my holes. You know, that is kind of where I'm going with my holes. So this is my first signature line right here. This will be my second signature line right here. Okay, so once I have done that, I just make sure that I have got all of my pages kind of where I want them in my book, you know, because they will slide down as you're working on them, and you don't want that. You don't want to, which has happened, they kind of slide down and then they're just stuck where you kind of where they were at, because you've already got it stitched in. So I always just kind of check and make sure that I have everything exactly where I want it. Now this one ended up not very many pages because that spine was just so small. Okay, so I just then get in that crease where I have got my line, and I can erase them. In a little while, I will just erase them out of the way. Now, some people clip this, and you can do that. I usually don't worry about it too much anymore, but you can clip your things there so that everything stays in place. But I'm just taking my paper piercer and I'm just piercing where the marks are for my holes. Okay, so now I've got my holes there. Then I grab this and I'm going to go through the center first, and I like my strings to be on the inside. So I go from the inside out in the center first. If you want your strings on the outside and you don't want them showing on the inside, then what you do is you'll go from the outside in. So that's how you do that. Then I take my little waxed cord, and I will show you that. I get this at Walmart. I forget how much it is, probably around $3 and something, or right at $3. And they have it in black, they have it in white, and I always buy the white. I don't like the feel of the black cord or the waxed cord in this, so I usually just stick with the white. And I can always, if I don't want it that white, use my distress ink and just put a little distress ink on it and get it kind of colored up. So, but this is what I'm using, is this waxed cord. Okay, I'm going inside out. Okay. And then I'm just going to take this and make sure that I'm in the hole so that I'm lined up. I'm not trying to figure it out and hurting my pages in there. And then I'm just going to come in. Okay. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom, and same way I'm going to get those holes lined up so that I'm not trying to find it. Sometimes you can poke through your pages if you're not careful, if you don't already have them lined up, just wiggling that needle around trying to, you know, find them holes, getting them holes to line up. And then this one should pretty well be lined up because you've already got the string in it. So I'm going to kind of, now I've got this string on one side, and I do want to, when I come through, come on the, I want this string in the center. So I'm just going to, and you know what, I'm not feeling that lined up, so I'm going to go ahead and stick my my thing through there. And actually I can see the light through there, so I know that I'm lined up for sure now. So alright, and then I'm just coming on the other side of the make sure I'm on my top. Yes. Okay, so then I just take out, and you do want a darn needle, one of those big needles. They may not call them that anymore, I don't know, but that's what they used to be called. Okay, then you want to pull in opposite directions. Don't pull too much like this or like this, because you'll tear your pages. You want to just go away from each other, just pulling them out away from each other, and that will tighten up your strings. And then I just give it a double tie. That's all I do. Right there. Yeah, you don't want to rip your pages because you're pulling too tight. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. There's my first little signature in. Okay, then I'm going to work on getting the second signature in. So I've got my second piece of string here, or cord, and I am threading it through. Okay, same way here, and I have already done this. I want to make sure that I've got my pages where I want them, so that if they have moved, then you know, they'll be where I want them. So then I just kind of close it and make sure my pages are nice and together. And I've already done this here. You can kind of see where I have already marked with the pencil. I have just, I mean, if my circle was kind of over here, I just take it and I just draw that line across, you know, so that it's in the crease. I have already, you know, marked this. So when I was marking my, when I was lining up my second signature line, like here and here, you know, that's the same way. I just lined up my second signature line right there, brought it up, and then marked for my holes. Got this one centered and marked a pencil. Okay, then marked it. And then I'm just going to do the same thing, just kind of make sure those are, let's see, I will go ahead and get this here so that you know, it probably is easier if you put this on here. It's just I don't usually normally do that. I go ahead and just poke through. Okay, so there's my center, and then here is my top hole here. You know, some people get a book or an old telephone directory or something, but I just poke through is what I do. Okay, so then the second signature is always hardest, I think, just because you've already got, you know, you already have your other signature there and kind of in the way. So but I just pull it through. You want to make sure you leave enough string that you're not going to lose your string there. Okay, then what I will do is I will go through and find my hole back here and make sure that I am getting in my signature, okay, in the right spot, and then this just goes through. Okay, and if you want that tightened, pull them away from each other, don't go towards each other. And then this one here, I'm going to come through, and then I'm going to kind of just make sure I'm getting in the hole and I'm not having to, you know, root around trying to find that hole. Then here, you know, I will go through and make sure with that other string that I am in that hole. Whoops, I don't want to split that string though, and sometimes that happens. It kind of gets in that string and splits it a little bit. Okay, and just kind of twist it around and make sure it's nice and open. And then you can take this, and same way here, I don't want to split that cord, and I just get on the other side of my string, and there we are. Now this one here was fairly simple because the signatures are not big. Now when you do have a large amount of pages in your signatures, it's a little more difficult to navigate that. So, but anyway, okay. So here is my book now. So the next thing I will do is I am going to take an eraser and just erase my pencil marks a little bit so that you can't see them. Let's see if I can get it in here. Yeah. Where is my center? There we are. Okay. And anyway, now I've just gotten rid of kind of those pencil lines that I had in there. All right. So now I'm getting ready to put this in the spine. So for this, I'm going to be using my tacky glue. Whoops, see if I can get down in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get my Fabri-Tac, not tacky glue, Fabri-Tac. Okay. And I'm just going to start getting some glue. And get the glue. My bottle's about half empty there, so. Or probably a little more than half empty. Okay. So what I'm going to start doing now is I'm just going to get glue, and I am putting it on the string, and in between the string I just want glue, and I like to get heavy with the glue so that it stays in there. And I'm just putting it on the spine part right now. I am not sticking it I am not sticking it on the side, the little inch side pieces, just the spine. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure my book is going upwards. Yes, you have to check that. I know it's a pain, but you really have to check it. It'll just save you some headache down the road, having to pull all that stuff off if you've got it in upside down. Okay, and then be sure and shift or anything you need to do before your glue dries. Okay, make sure that you have the same amount of space from the top as you do the bottom. As you can see here, this is what I'm talking about, because I never have my spine go all the way. My craft text go all the way to the top and the bottom. So I just kind of make sure that I have the same amount of space. as I do one, as I do the other. So, and I'm okay with the way it looks, I think, right now. Okay. And just press that glue in there. Get it kind of pressed in. Okay, and that looks good right there. And just make sure you're pressed in and let that glue dry. And it fits in that spine just wonderful, so I'm happy with the way it is in there. Okay, so once that I have that, and I know that I have it, you know, top and bottom pretty much the same distance apart, then I go ahead, once I feel like that is nice and stuck in there, then I will glue down these right here, my flaps right there. Let me get something to clean that glue off a little bit. Okay, so now I'm just gonna glue this down. And once again, you know, be generous with your glue. You don't want your spine to be coming out. So I'm pretty generous with the glue there. And then I just press it down, and you might even kind of, you know, bend your book a little bit and get that worked where it's going to have to bend. And there we go. And that, I like that. That looks nice. And this part's going to be covered, like I said, so it's not a big deal. That's why I like to have that little inch overhang, because it is for sure secure under whatever I put there. Now, if you feel a ledge and you feel like you want to build that up, then cut you a piece of paper, you know, the width of this, you know, and kind of fill that in, and then put your top paper there. You can do that if you feel like it's too much of a ledge there. Okay, then we're just gonna come here and get the back part here done too. So I'm just gonna get that nice and glued up. Add a little extra glue if I feel like it needs it right in that crease. Okay, and I think that is glued up nicely, so I'm going to just take and stick that down. Okay, and once again, crease your book kind of up and make sure it's getting in the crease there. Okay. All right, so I have to decide what paper I'm actually going to use on my cover pieces here. If it's really thin, I will probably have to build this little ledge piece up. I'll probably have to put me a piece there. So, okay, and that is really all there is to doing that spine. And then when you open it, oh, and I need to put my cheesecloth here, yeah, as well. But I want to put my paper on there first that I'm going to actually paper that in. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll just finish the book on out with you and get the cheesecloth there where I always kind of hide that. So, okay, let me figure out what paper I'm going to put there, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and got this piece put on, and I decided to just go with the paper. Because I have just made this a journal and it's just mainly images and all, I didn't want to use scrapbook paper. So what I have done is I've just used some more copy dyed paper. I did build it up. I did put a piece of paper against the edge of my craft text, and then I went ahead and covered it then, and so it's nice and smooth across. So anyway, I'm not going to put anything at all here. That will be to the recipient to be able to maybe want to pocket or just journal there or whatever. I'm going to actually leave that. But what I'm going to do now is get my cheesecloth to fill in this here. So I've got the cheesecloth, of course, kind of hanging out of the spine there. And now I want to cut off this edging, I think, on this cheesecloth. I don't want to use that edging. Cheesecloth always has a little edging on it and I just don't think, well, I might use that. No, I just don't think I'm going to use that. Okay, excuse me. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut me a little cheesecloth, and I'll probably fold it over, or I'll cut it twice here, put 2 layers, because I want that a little thick to go over this spine. Now, I don't mind the brown showing through, but now if you don't like the brown, there's an easy fix to that. Let me I see I've rearranged a little bit here, so some of my stuff is opposite side me. So if we don't want that quite so brown, what I would do is just add a little bit of gesso. Not too much. And you know, I will probably take and add a little bit of this distress paint, maybe just a hair of just to give it a light color. Find if I can find a brush here. So what I did is I just have a little bit of gesso there. I'm going to soften my brush up here where I've washed it and get the bristles nice and soft. I'm going to add a little bit of this distress paint from Tim Holtz. It is Vintage Photo. But I'm just going to, put a dab in that gesso, because I just want it a little off-white. I don't want it, so this is what I would do. I would just take and add a little bit of that gesso there, just real light. Doesn't have to be heavy. And I'm kind of getting on my page over here, which is okay. I don't want it on this page though. I want to be careful that I'm not getting it on there. So then it kind of lightens up that just a hair. I'm going to take this. Let's see, I'd like to take something here. Turn my book around and just build me something where it can't get on my page. And what I'm doing is I'm just filling in that brown a little bit, just making it a little lighter. Okay, so anyway, now you can see we've kind of got rid of that dark brown. If that's just something that you don't like, then that will work as well. There is always a solution, most times, to your projects. You just have to be creative. Okay, so I'm going to take my cheesecloth then, and see, when I put my cheesecloth on, then I don't have the dark brown. So what I'm doing is I did fold that over. I'm going to, gesso shouldn't take too long to dry. Let it dry just a second. Okay. We'll give it a minute to let it dry. Okay, so the gesso is dry, and I'm going to go ahead and lay my cheesecloth in there what I want to do is I did kind of just fold that, but I really like it to have an edge. So I'm just going to snip off a little bit of that fold. I want it to really have a raw edge and not a folded edge. That's just personal preference. Okay, so now I have that where it kind of has the raw edge on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue it. Now I want it to overlay on this page just a little bit. I like that. I like the way it looks when it does that. So that is kind of how I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut off this kind of lopsided hunk there. Okay, so then I'm just going to take some glue, and I'm just going to put a little bit in there, just really enough to hold that cheesecloth. And I'm just going to run a little, just a dab up on the edge of that paper. I don't want it, like I said, I don't want it really stuck all to that, but let's see. Okay, and what I do is I cut it long enough that it overhangs top and bottom, and I can kind of cut it as I want it. Okay, so anyway, there is kind of what I have done. You can see I just like the cheesecloth there. It just kind of gives it a little character instead of having just that gap showing. I mean, I just like to do that. That is just something I find a little more interesting. So, and then I just kind of trim off how I want this to look at the bottom. Now what I will do is right here, I will glue that down, because that way there is really no none of that extra little spine showing up there where that paper is, or where the craft text is. So, okay. So once I get that and it's good and dry, and if you want to do it and you're not sure that it's dry, just lay you something there that it can fold over on. That way if it sticks, it will stick to that. Okay, then I find my signature here. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is the same exact thing. I'm going to grab some of that gesso. Oops, and it's a little, I need to add a little, what did I do with my, what did I do with my gesso? Put it away. Okay, so I'm going to, whoops, I bent my page. Okay, so I'm going to open my gesso here, and I'm going to add a little more, kind of dried out on me. Okay, and I'm just adding a little bit of brown in it, just to get rid of a little bit of the white. Don't want all that white. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of dab it. I want to be careful because I don't want it on the pages. I'm just kind of dabbing it to get rid of a little bit of the Now you could easily do this before you put your signatures in, but a lot of times I decide something after the fact, so that's just what I do. And if you get it on the page, just kind of rub it off. I just don't care for it on that page. Just take your brush and kind of... Okay. And then just kind of wipe off that excess. Your cheesecloth is going to come up a little bit on those pages anyway, so. Okay, so there is my spine, nice and colored in. So it's not so much brown showing. I'm going to let that dry. While that is drying, I'm actually going to, let's see, I've got my, whoops, it's not long enough. Find something that's long enough here. Grab me a piece of paper here, that is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn that. I've got it where it can't get on nothing. And I'm actually going to go ahead and go in here and touch this up so it can be drying as well. And my gesso won't dry out so before I get to it. Okay, so I'm just kind of going in and, oops, I don't want it on that. And like I said, it doesn't hurt to get on the outer page there a little bit because that cheesecloth is going to cover it anyway. Just kind of go in and touch it up, and that looks good to me. And my spine is not all brown. Okay, so there it is. I've got that all kind of touched up, and it's kind of the color of the cheesecloth actually. So okay, so now that I've got that, I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to just let it kind of dry a little bit. I'm going to set that. Alright, on this one actually what I might do is grab something I've got laid around. I just bought some Kleenexes at Walmart. So okay, so I'm going to come back over here and kind of check out my my center. It's still a little wet. So anyway, I'm going to let this dry real good is what I'm going to do. And then I will be right back and we'll finish this up. Okay, so my little paint is dry, or my gesso mixture there is dry. So I have cut my strip for the center to go ahead and just put that cheesecloth right in there. So I'm going to get my glue. And I'm just going to, oops, I think I'm going to have to, let's see what I did with the pen. There we are. Got to keep that from drying there. Okay. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue in there to catch my cheesecloth. I'm going to spread it out a little bit here. Okay. And just kind of, oops, I've gotten a piece of something there in my cheesecloth. We don't want that there. I've been working on several different projects, and so my table is still pretty messy. I've got black seam binding I've had on it. I've got pink. Just got all kinds of colors flowing there. Sometimes it just seems like I work on 2 or 3 projects at one time instead of just doing one and completing it. I always end up having a couple things going on. Okay, so I'm putting a little bit of it up here on the page. I want a little bit of it on the center to just come up on the page. This here, I feel like I have a little bit too much, so I'm just going to trim a little bit of it off. Okay. And then I do want to trim the top there. Okay. So, and I do like to kind of make it a little stringy. I don't like it real, just real, I guess what I want to say is I don't want it to look all real even and unmessy. I want it to look kind of frayed and those kind of things. Okay. So, let's go ahead and, alright, so I like the way that looks. I'm going to go ahead and just tack that down a little bit there with some glue, and same way there, just kind of, alright, so there is my center, and I just like the cheesecloth look. I really, really do. Okay, then I'm actually going to, since that glue is a little wet, I'm going to put something there to keep it from sticking, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the back, and go ahead and get this also worked in there. I've got some cheesecloth cut here already. Let's see if I can get it kind of right out there. And then I'm going to lay a second piece over it. I like to double my pieces there. Okay, and then I'm just going to add some glue. This glue does dry clear, so that's always a good thing. And I'm just going to add a little bit up on the side, not much, just a little bit there on the page, and then some here, just a little bit there. Okay, and then we're just going to kind of just place it in there and work at it a little bit. Work at frayed look, so I'm just kind of stretching it out a little bit. Okay, and then what I'll do is I will start trimming this a little. And then I'll trim this off just a little. You don't want it real long here. Okay, go ahead and trim that up. Alright, just kind of fray it out. Fray it out a little. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to also trim this off. I don't want it quite that tall right there. Okay, and I like the way that there looks. I'm going to add a little extra on this layer, second layer here, because some of it is can pull up, and I don't want it to pull up too much. Okay guys, so I hope that this tutorial was helpful in doing your spines. It is a process. I mean, you know, it is definitely a process when you're working with the hardcover books. And sometimes it goes really easy for you, and other times it may be a little more difficult, especially when you're trying to line up the holes on your signature. So I believe that is good right there. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to kind of put that there because I want to be sure everything's caught without glue being wet. That's still a little damp. So anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this. This has been a super fun tutorial. Of course, I will have my completed book uploaded to YouTube. I don't know if it will be before this tutorial or after, but anyway, you can catch the completed book when I get all the little insides finished up. So anyway, guys, I hope that this was helpful, and most of all, I hope that you will try one. So anyway, that's going to be the little book there. Thanks so much for watching, guys.